Hello, campers, and welcome to another episode of Camp Half-BloodCast.
We're about to assist Percy on his quest to finding the lightning thief.
So, we will start with Chapter 1, I Accidentally Vaporized My Pre-algebra Teacher. We're introduced to Percy Jackson, a serial school expulsion victim who really is trying his hardest to be good at his school trip to the museum. Until the water fountain seemingly attacks his bully, and he accidentally vaporizes his pre-algebra teacher with a pen that turns into a sword. So,
A lot to unpack.
hello, campers, and welcome to another episode of Camp Half-BloodCast. Look, I didn't want to be a half-blood monologue, which you can find on our socials.
Leah's doing it, and it's really good. Check it out.
Thank you very much. And we begin with our main character, Percy Jackson, calling himself a troubled kid, which I think we have different opinions because personally I think he's an angel.
For a troubled kid or a person that would be described as troubled kid, he's not really causing that much trouble.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Like Percy's on his way to the museum with his classmates. This is where we begin our story. He's trying to be on his best behavior as he has been warned that if he isn't, he will be expelled. He mentions that he's caused problems before.
Yeah, he's basically been expelled from every other school that he was in. Like, he's being expelled every year, and his poor mom needs to find him a new school every year.
I know. He explains that one of the times he accidentally shot a cannon at the bus.
How do you act?
I don't know. I'm like, why is the cannon loaded?
What is it loaded with?
I know. Like, how bad was it? And then another time he mentions they went to an aquarium and he accidentally dropped the whole class on the walkway into like a shark tank.
I would never walk above a shark tank.
Why are they letting kids above a shark tank anyway?
There's probably like a viewing platform or something. Well, either way, the two teachers that accompany him, the class, are Mr. Brunner, the Latin teacher, who is an ancient Greek mythology enthusiasm, just ancient Greece enthusiasm. And Percy really likes him.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, and should I mention the other teacher and then we get into it? Or
yeah,
so the other teacher is pre-algebra teacher, Mrs. Dodds, and he hates her and she hates him. And he says that he doesn't think she's human.
And well, basically, his best friend Grover agrees with him very seriously. We are on our way to the museum with Percy.
Yeah, exactly.
And then his best friend Grover, and they're both getting bullied by a child called Nancy Bobofit, who's a bad person.
She is.
And again, Percy is really trying to behave.
Yeah, because he's been expelled before and he's actually on probation, so he should not.
No, he should not. And Grover actively is also reminding him because Percy is close to losing it with Nancy several times. But Grover says, it's fine. I like peanut butter because that's what she's doing. She's throwing peanut butter sandwiches in his hair.
That's an interesting way of putting someone. Then they arrive at the museum, look at the stele,
which is a grave marker. It was a grave marker in ancient Greece.
Exactly. And Percy is distracted by his classmates, but he actually wants to listen.
Exactly.
But just people talking around him makes it hard to focus, and he brings attention to himself accidentally.
Because he tells Nancy Bobofit to shut up.
Exactly.
Mr. Brunner asks him, like, what is happening on this stele? And Percy recognizes the imagery of Kronos eating his kids.
But also poor Percy, he wanted to pay attention, says, "Oh, shut up, Nancy," and then
he seems like he's the person that's not listening.
Exactly.
When he actually does know the answer to this, though, but calls Kronos a god originally, and then corrects it into Titan. Mr. Brunner then asks Percy how. Well, actually, that's a lie. Nancy mutters like, how are we ever meant to use this in real life? Like, what is, like, does this mean? And Mr. Brunner calls her out, which Percy actually really enjoys, that Nancy is actually getting caught. And Grover says, "Gotcha," or something like that. And Mr. Brunner says, Percy, as Nancy asked, how would you relate this to real life?
And Percy can't answer the question, and obviously, like, none of us would.
I know. I thought it was capitalism.
Well, I can't imagine a 12-year-old Percy being like, capitalism.
I know, but like, honestly, he's a 12-year-old. He's grown up in New York. Capitalism is, Wall Street is in New York.
But it's like, how would you answer that? How mythology relates to life?
I know, but that's the thing. Is it eat or be eaten, or is it capitalism?
Possibly.
But he doesn't know how to answer the question. And if I was 12, I would not have known either.
Oh, yeah.
And Percy knows that Mr. Brunner looks disappointed at this.
Yeah, because Percy really likes him, obviously, and he kind of feels that he expects more of him. I think he actually mentions it.
He does mention that he feels like the expectations are like, he doesn't just, what he actually says is he doesn't just want him to be as good as his classmates. He wants him to be like him to be better.
But yeah, he expects more of him, but it feels like he's falling short due to his dyslexia and ADHD, which obviously makes learning difficult. But he's doing a good job.
He tries his best. Like, this is what I mean. A troubled kid. What do you mean? You're trying your
he
best.
He recognized the painting.
Exactly.
For God's sake.
For God's sake, come on. But that's the thing. Like, and as they leave, like, Mr. Brunner calls for the lunch break, and then as they leave, he says to Percy that this is life or death information, that he expects Percy to actually know what this means. And again, Percy is like, oh man. And when they get outside and he's joined by Grover, he says, "Did you get detention?" And then Percy says, "Not from Mr. Brunner, but I wish he would stop giving me a hard time. Like, he would lay off me a little."
Yeah. And then they're having their lunch, and we know, like, Percy mentions that the weather's been a bit weird recently.
That apparently since Christmas, the weather has been like everything from like thunderstorms to hurricanes to snowstorms, and they basically, I think, note that there is like some thunder in the distance, and he thinks something.
Also, I love how Percy and Grover distance themselves from the rest of the group because they don't want to be associated with those kids.
So, in case we actually didn't mention this, but Yancey, the academy that he goes to is for troubled kids, like kids with problem, like criminals, etc.
Why is Grover there?
That's a good question. What is Grover doing there?
Why is he Yancey?
Well, actually, Percy mentions he has like a disability, that he's excused for PE from life, and also, but then we shouldn't let this fool us, because on Enchilada Day he can run fast. But that Grover must have been held back several grades because he has a wispy beard and he cries when he's frustrated, which I'm like, me too, Grover.
Yeah, okay, maybe that makes him actually a troubled kid.
Maybe
crying. No.
And also, he doesn't mind having peanut butter sandwiches thrown in his hair. Like, I'm sorry.
I mean, after all this time, maybe he doesn't. You know?
Oh, true.
Yeah. But either way, that's when Nancy shows up to bully them again.
Actually, we're forgetting that Percy actually sits on that fountain and just wishes he could take a cab home to his mom. Which is like, and again, a troubled kid. What do you mean?
I want to be with my mommy.
Yeah, he just wants to go home to his mom, and he knows his mom would be angry if he left the school trip.
Yeah.
But he'd just like to see her because he hasn't seen her since Christmas.
But obviously, she would be angry because he would be causing trouble, then jeopardizing his education.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's return of Nancy Bobofit.
Yeah. So she comes back to bully them again, and that's when Percy gets angry.
And he kind of tries to tell himself what the school counselor has told him, which is to take deep breaths and just bear the anger. Yeah. But he blacks out in anger.
And then he sees Nancy Bobofit in the fountain complaining that she was being pushed by Percy. And he doesn't remember it, obviously, because he blacked out. And everyone's talking about how Percy pushed her. But also there's voices being like, oh, water grabbed her.
Like, did you see the water came out and grabbed her? And obviously, we all know this can't happen. Like, it must have been
kids.
Percy.
They're kids, so imagination,
Yeah, but well, we think no one catches us, but Mrs. Dodds is on the job. So Mrs. Dodds favors Nancy a lot.
Obviously, she's a math teacher.
Pre-algebra teachers always get the whole thing wrong, obviously. But Mrs. Dodds pounces on them and says that Percy needs to come with her. And Grover, the angel, tries to take the fall.
Yeah, he's because he knows that Percy can't get into trouble again because he's going to be expelled.
And Grover and Percy are obviously best friends. And if you're not in trouble, you know you're going to take the fall for your best friend.
Exactly. But yeah, so Mrs. Bob's. I mixed them up.
Mrs. Dodds.
Goes up to the museum again, and then Percy follows her, but he looks away for a second, and then she's suddenly up the stairs, and he doesn't see her walk up, and he's like, how did she appear just up there?
And he tries to rationalize it with his ADHD, saying that his ADHD kind of gives him like lapses of this where he doesn't, like, he loses events that's happened.
That's also what he's been told by his school counselor.
Yeah, that it's because he doesn't focus, so he just misses out on information. However, this time he feels like that isn't the case.
Yeah, but he follows her into an empty gallery. But on his way upstairs, he's like, "Oh, he's gonna make me buy a T-shirt from Nancy for pushing her into the
what money."
I mean,
it's a child.
They're rich kids. Most of them. Percy's not, but most of them.
Yeah, well, I just can't believe that. Like, come on, it'll dry. Stop being a baby, Nancy. But basically, yeah, he follows her inside to the gallery, and they're alone. He notes. Yeah. But then she starts growling.
And just generally behaving weirdly and saying weird stuff.
I mean, I have heard math teachers growl, so...
Yeah, it's more like what she was saying.
But he's trying to rationalize this and being like, he's not unsafe, but it's like...
It's a teacher.
It's a weird being alone with a teacher.
Yeah.
Mrs. Dodds, however, seems like she is kind of on a different realm because she starts saying, did you think we didn't know? Like, did you think we wouldn't find out? Know what you've done? And then Percy in this moment is like, oh man, they found out that I'm like selling candy out of my dorm, or that I bought a book review of Tom Sawyer on the internet and now they're gonna make me write a new one, or worse, make me read the book.
Oh my god.
Which is
but yeah, something worse than that happens because Mrs. Dodds suddenly turns into a monster.
And it's just like, I mean, yeah, that has happened.
What would you do if your teacher actually turned into a monster and you were alone with them? What would you do?
Yeah, well, Percy kind of doesn't really understand what's going on. But then Mr. Brunner appears in the gallery, and we have noted, well, as he left for the gallery, the museum, Mr. Brunner was reading his book, just minding his own business.
Not even seeing that Percy is going somewhere.
I actually think we forgot to mention Mr. Brunner is in a wheelchair, which makes it even more. Which makes it more incredible that he's just up the stairs and in the vibe.
Sorry, it's just so obvious.
No, I know. I
mean,
it's it's all reliable.
So how did he get up the stairs? So
I know
fast?
He comes in and he throws a pen at Percy.
Exactly, and the pen turns into a sword. And Percy has that instinct of just like slashing it when the math teacher monster
lunges at him.
Yeah, exactly. And thanks to that instinct, he manages to defeat the monster, and she turns into a yellow dust.
That smells like sulfur, and for you at home, it means rotten eggs. It's not a nice smell. But, well, when Percy looks to his hand, the sword is a pen, and Mr. Brunner is nowhere to be seen. Yeah. Which, again, if someone is in a wheelchair, you would maybe hear them go or, be able to catch up.
But, yeah, he basically exits the museum, and he sees his class, and Mr. Brunner is literally in the spot that he left him, reading his book. Nothing changed.
And then Percy finds Grover and he says, where's Mrs. Dodds or something? I don't actually remember what he says. I will just check on the notes because this feels somewhat important.
Yeah.
He actually, it's a lie. He sees Nancy says, "I hope Mrs. Kerr whipped your butt," and he goes, "Who?" And well, Mrs. Kerr is a pre-algebra teacher. And when he asks Grover about Mrs. Dodds, he also goes, "Who?" But he hesitates.
Yeah, exactly.
And that leads Percy to believe that maybe
something's going on. Maybe they're all kind of trying to fool him. Yeah, because I remember him being like, "Oh, is everyone just making a joke?"
And well, then he goes to Mr. Brunner to, I think, inquire about Mrs. Dodds. But
Yeah.
Mr. Brunner also goes, "There is no teacher at Yancey Academy called Mrs. Dodds. Are you okay, Percy?"
Exactly. And then he goes, "Oh, could you give me back my pen? And next time, bring your own writing utensils."
And now Percy is severely gaslit. Or maybe is he? No one really knows, I guess.
Exactly. What's going on? Why does no one remember her?
And this is where the chapter ends. Who is Mrs. Dodds? What I really want to touch on first is the myth that is presented in this chapter. We are presented with the Titan Kronos and his Olympian kids, which was basically led into the war on the Titans.
So basically, Kronos is his parents are Uranus and Gaia, so the sky and the earth, and obviously they had a lot of Titan kids, and then he took over the world, and basically there was a prophecy that if he has kids, at some point they're gonna defeat him.
So he does what every rational person does. Or Titan. What every rational Titan does, he eats his children.
Yeah, why not?
I mean, what better way to control a prophecy?
Exactly, but imagine his wife though. She gives birth, and then he just eats it up.
Basically, she gives birth to 5 Titans that he eats, and then she gives birth to the 6th one, and then she decides to hide the 6th one and feed him rocks instead. I also personally think there's something to be unpacked there. Like, how did you not realize you're eating rocks?
Yeah, exactly. Oh my god, yeah. I mean,
are you chewing it? No, he's swallowing them whole.
Or it would be just kind of like wrapped up in a baby blanket if gods do that or Titans do that.
I mean, also he just, oh my god, there must be something wrong with him. He's like a snake. He just swallows them whole.
Yeah, I mean, he's a Titan, okay.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, she hides her 6th baby, which is Zeus.
Yeah.
And he grows to be healthy and strong until he gets old enough, and then he tricks Kronos by... I mean, there's different variations of the myth of how he does this.
There's variations when he gives him like poison or some other liquids, but here in the book we have...
mustard and wine.
Exactly.
And basically Kronos pukes up all his 5 kids who are now grown Olympians.
Because they're gods, so they obviously like can't be digested.
I know. So they've grown healthy in his stomach. He must have had like a massive stomach. I have a lot of questions.
Again, he's a Titan.
Yeah. Well, together, the 6 Olympians, and that is Zeus, Hades, Poseidon, Hera, Demeter, and Hestia.
Yeah.
Well, they defeat him and cut him into a million pieces and throw him in Tartarus, which is the deepest part of the underworld / hell.
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 versions of that story, and in one version, it's like Zeus, Hades, and Poseidon. They don't really get eaten. Somehow they escape, I think, or whatever. But then together they defeat him, and therefore, save their other siblings, and that's why they split the earth basically. So Zeus gets the sky, Poseidon gets water, and Hades gets the underworld. But that's just one version. Obviously, that's how they've split up the world either way. But yeah, I mean, I do prefer the Percy Jackson version though.
Yeah. I mean, again, it could be either. Like, as you find with any of these, as the further we go along with this, we will find there are a lot of different versions of the same myth. I mean, everyone kind of pushes the narrative that Hades lost that bad. Which, I mean, he kind of did because he's not an Olympian. He doesn't live on Mount Olympus. However, personally, I have been at many family gatherings, and I just think maybe he won. But that's just me.
Yeah.
I love my family.
That sounds like it.
Anyway, as we go along, I think we should do some character introductions. We've been
Yeah.
introduced to like a whole series of characters.
To everyone on the series. But yeah, we meet Percy, who's the best main character of a book series I have ever read.
I think he is extremely likable. We love him. I think you like, as a kid, you want to be his friend, but like now as you grow older, you kind of want to protect him because I think he's quite
I always wanted to be him.
okay, or that, or that.
But yeah, I mean, he is unreliable because, yeah.
An unreliable narrator because he kind of sells himself really short.
Yeah, I mean, he's so clever.
He is very clever.
Like,
And he just tries his best. He's very self-aware.
obviously has dyslexia and ADHD, which makes it very difficult for him to learn. But except for that, like he's a really nice guy. He
is a really nice guy. And also, like, he just wants to be with his mom.
Yeah, and he's
A
smart.
12-year-old kid.
Exactly, he's smarter than he thinks. Like, he's only 12 years old, okay?
Yeah, if you asked me at 12 years old what Kronos was, I'd be like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think I
Pokemon?
already watched Percy Jackson back then, so...
I don't remember. I don't remember how old I was. Then we meet Grover.
Yeah. I used to dislike Grover, actually, a lot. But now, rereading it, I feel like, yeah, I'm liking him.
Yeah, I think maybe it's because he does kind of encourage Percy to be a bit more mature.
Yeah, he kind of calms him down as well. Like, Percy needs someone to be like...
Yeah, and I think as a child, when you're reading that, you're like, screw you.
Yeah.
Like, I will fight. I will die on every battle.
Exactly.
Yeah, I feel like he does seem like seemingly passive. And like he's hiding something, but he does, to be fair, try to take a fall for Percy, so he has some loyalty there. That I think is genuine.
They're both kind of try to protect each other, which is really sweet.
I know, I love them. I love both of them.
We have also Mr. Brunner, who's the history Latin teacher, and I wish I had a teacher like that.
I know, he seems like a very good teacher, but I could understand why Percy would maybe feel like there's a lot of pressure on his shoulders.
Yeah, as good as a teacher as he is, maybe you shouldn't like expect more. I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe you should.
I mean, I wrote the notes like a good teacher but strict.
Yeah.
Which I think a teacher should challenge you.
Yeah, a good teacher actually does challenge you.
Yeah, but he, like Grover, seems to either know something, but mostly Mr. Brunner seems to want something from Percy.
Yeah, I mean, he did end up going up there and helping him with the dance
Did he?
thing.
Did he?
Right?
Who knows?
Or he didn't. I don't know.
Well, I mean, was he there? Was he not? I mean, Percy is being gaslit in the most extreme way. Who knows?
And we are being gaslit as well.
I feel like,
as
again,
readers.
unreliable narrative. Like, do you know, Percy, what's going on? Then we got Nancy Bobofit, who's a jerk.
And that's all.
Rude, mean, a bad child.
And that's it. That's her whole character.
And then we got Mrs. Dodds, who, in contrast to Mr. Brunner, is unreasonable and unjust.
Like every math teacher ever.
Yeah.
And no.
I think so. My old math teacher told me, by the way, he told me that I was a Kinder Egg because I was brunette on the outside but blonde inside.
Oh my God.
And I have never forgotten.
That's a true monster though.
I know.
What would you do if your teacher turned into a monster though?
Pee myself. I don't have a lot of ideas of heroism, I think.
I would probably try running away.
I mean, yeah, that too.
It doesn't make sense though, because monsters are really fast. But I would be like,
I love. Why didn't I say run away? Why did I say pee myself was the first choice? Okay,
that's why you put this daughter, and I'm Athena's daughter, by the way.
Yeah. Shout out to my father in the sky. Thank you.
Bless us.
Thank you for the bladder.
Okay, favorite moment.
I think I need to pull out my favorite quote in maybe this entire. Well, actually, it's a lie. It's not my favorite quote in the entire series, but in this book, probably. When they're getting bullied, and Grover tells Percy to calm down. Percy says, looking back on it, I wish I decked Nancy Bobofit right then and there. In school suspension would have been nothing compared to the mess I was about to get myself into. And as a character, like as an introduction to my main character in this book, I would be like, you know what? You're so real. You're so real. You should have decked her right there.
Okay.
And then another is that he wants to see his mom when they're sitting on the fountain. And I just love his mom and him so much. And then the third I put down is the fact that he was selling candy out of his dorm and bought a book review of Tom Sawyer on the internet and was scared that he got caught and he would be forced to read the book.
Yeah, that's a really funny moment.
I know. What about you?
Actually, so I have three favorite moments in this one. And one is that they mentioned that there's some weird weather thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that because that sets up a conflict, basically.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
Well, it
yeah.
does. No, it does. No, I did read that and was like, oh, I would not have
Something's
paid
going-
attention to this.
Yeah,
I
I
didn't
know.
know what was already going to happen.
But yeah, I love when the whole fountain situation happens because it's like Percy doing something that he doesn't really know that he did one of the first times. I mean, it sets some things up, I would say. Sorry, I'm trying not to reveal too much. But then my third one is Grover accidentally revealing that he knows something by pausing when Percy asks him about dots. Or does he accidentally reveal that? Because I feel like Grover, if he wanted to lie, he would not have a problem with that.
I disagree. I think Grover's a terrible liar.
I feel like if he actually wants to lie and believes in like that it's rightful to lie, then he would not have a problem with that.
Okay.
But he wants to tell Percy what's going on.
We digress.
Yeah. Okay.
I think he's a terrible liar. But that's the thing. I feel like he got told to lie, and that's why he hesitates, because he's a bad liar.
He doesn't want to lie.
It's fine. We can disagree.
Okay.
I think he's a terrible liar, and you think he's a good liar.
Yeah.
You think he's a moral liar. Like, he will lie if the time...
I feel like he would.
Scored.
Yeah. I mean, pretty much.
Okay, that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Let's move on. What's your favorite quote?
Well, I think more like, I think what a quote that really defines the chapter for me is the "Am I a trouble kid?" I guess you could say that, which is Percy Jackson literally on the first page. I think it sets up for the story very well.
Yeah.
We don't know what trouble kid means. Again, I think he's an angel, but it could mean many things.
Yeah. I mean,
What about you?
For me, the key moment, I did not pick a quote for that one. But the key moment is the whole, confrontation with Dodds. Because that kind of is an inciting incident, which in writing is basically a moment that sets the character on a journey that's going to change them. So I feel that confrontation and that moment between them, it's kind of when a monster reveals itself somewhat, or like,
Yeah.
oh, we don't know what happened, but something like that happened. It proves to some extent an existence of a different world potentially,
Yeah.
and a world that Percy have to be a part of, because otherwise, like, everyone else would have seen that as well. So yeah, I think that kind of is the most important moment in this chapter.
That is, I agree. Like, I think it increases the playing field a lot. But Kyron says that there's archery lessons on it free, so
We have to get going.
we have to unfortunately get going. I'm not falling as a child of Apollo. I'm not falling behind on my archery lessons, and I don't want to be in trouble because I don't want my dessert being revoked.
Did you realise that we're both good fighters? As in, I'm Athena's child.
I know, but I just say I was going to pee myself in the moment of pressure. Archery is like a long distance.
Cowards.
Is a long distance weapon, and
Coward's weapon.
I just think I like to be excluded from the narrative that I'm killing people, so I like to do it from afar. But anyway, Kyron is calling. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, thank you for listening.